Treasure, my former high school principal, say repeatedly in school functions that Jamaica's first Rhodes Scholar was from your castle over 100 years ago. Words from the former Your Castle High School's head boy, Jamaica's top performer in the 2014 sitting of the Senior Science and Theatre Double Major at Wesleyan University in the United States. Today, we're joined by Jamaica's 2021 Rhodes Scholar, Mr. Fitzroy Wickham. I am Breannah Edwards. You're watching the B broadcast, brought to you by the B Broadcasting Commission, sponsored by Your Castle High School's Students' Council. This and more when we return. Welcome back to the B broadcast. Welcome, Mr. Wickham. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Brianna. You can call me Fitzroy.
No problem. Firstly, I must congratulate you on this achievement. You know, you have joined a list of other Jamaicans who have been awarded this honor. But the big question, how does it feel to be a Rhodes Scholar?
Well, thank you for your words of congratulations. How do I describe it? It's such an exciting feeling. I will admit that it hasn't fully settled in as yet. The idea of being a Rhodes Scholar because it's something I would have heard about growing up, and I saw it as something otherworldly, something like not something I could have attained, but I threw my name in the hat, and now I'm Jamaica's Rhodes Scholar, and I don't know how to feel. It doesn't feel real, and I guess it won't really settle in until I'm actually at Oxford next year.
Right. So, how did you react when you first heard the news?
When I heard the news, I was literally speechless. The Governor General, he said my name. Well, actually, when I went back into the Zoom meeting, because this year was done virtually, I looked around the candidates on the screen, and I was trying to guess which one would be become Jamaica's Rhodes Scholar. Because but at that point, I'd counted myself out. I was like, I'll come back next year, I'll reapply, I'll go through the entire process. And then the Governor General, he took his sweet time, thanking everyone. Then he said my name, and I froze. I was in shock because I was like, is my mind playing tricks on me? And I tried to speak. I tried to say thank you to the committee. I tried to say thank you to the rest of the finalists, but I started choking. I just could not speak. And as soon as the Zoom call ended, I jumped up from my chair. I was in my room, and I ran down the staircase in my house that I live in on campus, and I screamed out, I got it, I got it, I got it. And my housemates, like, is this guy mad? And then I called my mom. I was like, Mommy, yes, I am Jamaica's Rhodes Scholar.
Wow. I know the feeling, just seems so unreal. But how were you influenced to apply for this scholarship in the first place?
So, like the excerpt you read earlier, Mr. Treasure would have been saying in school devotions repeatedly, Jamaica, as you know, he gives his motivational talks. He'll see the Magdala boy, up, you mighty Yorkist. And then every now and again, he'll talk about the first Jamaica Rhodes Scholar being a Yorkist. Also, that seed was in the back of my mind, but I never really considered it seriously until I came to Wesleyan. And it was during the winter break, I went back home and I visited my pre-college mentor, Dr. Dennis Minot, and he said you should seriously consider applying for the Rhodes Scholarship because you would be a good candidate. And I laughed at him. I was like, this is funny. I was like, okay, it's nice of you to say, make me feel good, but I don't think I would. But then over the summer, I decided to look into the process, and I saw that application was open and it closed end of September. And I said, you know what? Stranger things have happened. This is 2020. Some weird things are actually happening. So let's see if I apply, would I actually be successful? And I applied this year thinking I just get the feel of things and then reapply next year for real. But Praise be to God. I don't have to
Here
reply.
you are. 2021 Rose Scholar. I know sometimes the overall process can be overwhelming, but what was the most important part of the application process that stood out for you from the beginning?
The most important part is not a tangible aspect. It's more how the process changes you. And even if I wasn't selected for the Rhodes Scholarship, I would still be grateful for what it taught me, because I had to do some serious introspection. I had to analyze, who am I as a person? Who is Fitzroy Wickham? What do I care about? What are my values? What are my interests? What is my career path? My studies at school, and how does that lead to it? And the larger question, what impact do I hope to have on the world, and in particular Jamaica, because that's where I'm from, and in particular in Jamaica, my rural areas, because I'm from Brownstone, I'm from Orange Hill, and so thinking about that from the moment I was told that I was a finalist up until the point of the interview process, it just did. I think I grew so much as a person and matured, and now I have a clearer vision of where I see myself in the future.
And that is good indeed. Now I understand that you are well rounded, and the list of achievements you have received over the years would have helped to factor you in being awarded the 2021 Rhodes Scholarship. Describe to me some of these achievements and your involvement in these activities, beginning here at your alma mater, your castle, and then to Wesleyan University.
I hope I will say some. I don't think I can say all, but like for one academic accomplishment, I was the top of my class from infant school coming right up, and at York Castle that was no different. And so the kind of teaching that our teachers at York Castle give, it's world class. Like we hear Mr. Schroeder say it all the time, it's a five-star institution, but it's about time we start really believing it, because they prepare you for the world to conquer it. And so because of that preparation, I was able to become Jamaica's top CSEC performer back in 2014. And my year was the first year of CAPE students. And again, I was able to get 12 subjects at the CAPE level and do very well so that I could come to the US and study overseas after I did ACTs. And so my academic record has been, stellar since York Castle and even before. Also, my leadership, and I would say that York Castle really honed my leadership skills. Um, Prior to come to York Castle, I was in the United States, and I took part in a junior national young leaders conference, and they taught us different traits that you should have as a leader, and they showed us different historical figures in the U.S. history, and that inspired me. But then when I came to York Castle, that's when I got the opportunity to put that into motion, and so becoming forum captain, becoming peer tutor, becoming a monitor, becoming the head boy eventually, deputy head boy before that even. And that leadership prepared me for when I came to Wesleyan University where I am now. And I'm now the senior class president. I'm leader in different student organizations. And that's an important tenet of the Rhodes Scholarship. And I will say also that York Castle, I got involved in debating near the end. Mr. Treasure, from the very beginning, eighth grade, they were both. He started trying to get me to do public speaking, to go up in devotion and talk. And I was like, sir, could you please stop calling my name? Because I don't think everybody like it. I mean, I don't like it. I just want to stay in the back. But he was like, stop act so dark. Act like say a bambaka cow. He said these things and I was just like, leave me alone. And it was in grade 8 that I created Pablo, which is an alter ego to myself, and so that I can become more bolder when I go in public. And that's when I started speaking, and then I got involved in debating Mrs. Hardware, working with her in grade 13, and that really set the foundation for me to become the kind of speaker that I am right now. And I feel like that prepared me to go into the interview process when I went in for the Rhodes Scholarship. And I will stop there.
Right. So, what would you say to students who disregard the importance of getting involved in extracurricular activities?
I would say you're wasting your tuition. You're wasting the school fee. Like we go to school and we think that school is all about the classroom. It's more than just that. I would probably go and say it's 20% the classroom. Much of the learning that you do at any academic institution occurs outside of the classroom. And it's time that we start to get out of the idea that I'm going to school to write this thing in my notebook and that's it. Or I'm going to school just to get good grades and that's it. No, you're trying to become a well developed citizen who can contribute to society once you leave. Grades, they matter, they really do. But once you graduate with your ones, like that cannot really help society. So you need to develop tangible skills that you can invest in others and that you can be in a better position than your parents were financially, and that you can be in a better position so socially. And so when you take part in different club activities or other extracurricular activities, you are catering to your full self and you will discover talents and abilities you didn't even know you had. Because that happened for me. You would take up a new challenge and didn't even know you could do it. But you learn, don't give up, and eventually you come out on top. And so if you want to make the full use of your school fee, your tuition, and opportunities you have, especially youth, and I'm getting old now, so I will say this: young people, make use of the time that you have and do as much now while you still have all this energy.
And you couldn't have said it any better, Mr. Wickham. But before we break, tell us how you cope with different struggles. For example, let us look back at 2014 when your physics labs had gone missing just days before the deadline before submitting to CXC. I mean, how did you cope?
So I'm a person who doesn't stress easily, and I try to tell people this. At the end of the day, if I have life, if I'm still breathing, my heart is beating, it's fine. It's gonna be okay. Like some of these things that we stress about now, 5 years, 10 years later down the line, you look back, you're gonna look like, why were you going on all about this like this? Just like relax. But it took a while for me to get there because the first day I went home, I said, Mommy, it's a sign from the Lord, I should drop physics because I didn't enjoy the subject in the first place. So I'll be honest. But my mother said, you're mad? So I was like, okay, fine. Let me just give it a couple of days to see if the lab book will return. And so I relaxed. I was going to school like nothing changed. And I remember a teacher saying, Fitzroy, you okay? You find the lab book back? And I said, no, I don't know where it is. And they were like, okay. One teacher actually said, I think he's going mad upstairs and inside. And I was like, everything is cool, man. Everything is fine. But I think it was a week later that I realized, okay, this book was not going to return. So if I intend to sit physics, I have to redo it. So I knew what I had to do, prepare my mind for it, and I got my lab members, our partners from different experiments, to say, give me the data, and I spent sleepless nights rewriting all those labs so that I could hand it in on time. And it's just, you have to get to the mindset that there's some things you have to do and it won't last always. So once I was done with that, I could return to sleep. A few days of not sleeping was not going to kill me. But that being said, on a regular basis, I try to get as much sleep as possible. So, and that's how I handle stress now. Like, if the thing, I'm going to prioritize my health and my sleep over other things. If it can wait, I will let it wait. Because if I'm not feeling well, then I cannot do well in anything I'm doing. So I have to make sure that my energy is all the way up.
Right, and there we see some real motivation, dedication, and commitment. Mr. Fitzroy Wickham, 2021 Rhodes Scholar and proud Yorkist. We'll take a break here on the B broadcast. When we come back, we're going to hear about Mr. Wickham's life growing up in Brownstown, St. Anne, as well as the influences behind his successes. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the B broadcast, brought to you by the B Broadcasting Commission, sponsored by the Yorkastle High School's Students' Council. We're speaking with Yorkist and 2021 Rhodes Scholar, Mr. Fitzroy Wickham. How would you describe life growing up?
Very simple. My life wasn't too complicated. I grew up in a single parent household. My father died when I was just 2 years old. My sister was 6 at the time. And since his death, my mother, she raised us by herself. I was raised in Cockpit district of Orange Hill, right outside of Brownstone. And my earlier days, I can just remember reading a lot because my mother, she's a teacher, math teacher. At the time, she was teaching at St. Hilda's High School. Now she's at Arbuthnot Gallimore, and she teaches math. But she would encourage us to read, and so books are some of my earliest friends. And that opened my imagination to, I'm not ashamed to say I would talk to myself. I would talk to myself all the time, recreating what I'd read in the books. I'd watch TV and again try to replicate what I'd seen on the screen. And that was just life growing up. We would go to the Blossom Baptist Church. I was raised in Sunday school, and so I remember going, saying a memory verse, hearing Bible stories, taking Sunday school examination, and that was just life. And then the library was also a big factor because I started entering the reading competition since I was 6 years old, and would become parish champion several times and then national champion in that competition. And that was just what my life revolved around. It was home, it was school, library, church, and of course there were times to have fun. And so I did have the moments where I could, enjoy myself.
Right. So in this what has been or what has always been your biggest motivation to keep going against all odds?
I'm tempted to say I'm going to go with my mother. I mean, the Lord is a big factor, but and I will first want to acknowledge him and his influence on my life. But I would say my mother was a huge reason for me being where I am because she recognized that I was a gifted child from early on, and she didn't let that potential go to waste. And so she would encourage me to enter these competitions, like reading competition, and she would support me. And I remember like sometimes, even at orchestra, she would go to the school after seeing my report card and say, "Why his grade look like this? That's not my son's grade." And so she was that kind of mother. She was very involved in my life and what was happening. And I think all parents should. They should be involved in their children's lives. They should believe in their dreams. Because when I told my mother I wanted to become a neurosurgeon at what 10, she didn't laugh at me. She took me seriously, and she bought me Ben Carlson books. He's a famous black neurosurgeon who successfully separated twins joined at the head for the first time in history. And so, like, she bought me those books to encourage me along the path that I wanted to do, and that kind of support, it made me believe in myself to a point that even when I wasn't at home living with her, I had a kind of self-esteem that nothing could shake me. And I believe that her pouring into me from a very young age has a lot to do with who I am right now.
Right. And it's interesting that you mentioned your mother as today is the ending of Parents Month in Jamaica. So we just take like a few seconds to, salute all our parents, our hardworking, inspiring parents who are
Love you,
doing
mom.
their job. Right. Now, you have majored both in neuroscience and theater. Why were you drawn to these fields in the first place?
I got drawn to neuroscience when I was around 10. Before that, I wanted to become a doctor. Then I learned about Dr. Charles Drew, who was a cardiologist, decided to become a cardiologist, but then I was like, you know what? The brain or the heart, which one is more important? And I weighed that. I was like, okay, the brain is God's greatest creation, and I want to learn more about it. So I settled on that, and I also found surgery fascinating. A lot of people think it's disgusting and they get grossed up by it, but I think it's fascinating. Um, Theater, that I want to say it happened earlier, but I didn't recognize it until later. Because, as I mentioned before, I would talk to myself growing up and recreate what I'd seen in the books, or what I'd read in books and what I'd seen on television. I was acting from as early as then, but I didn't see it as a viable career until it was later in high school, that I said to people, I want to become an actor. And they laughed at me. They were like, why do you want to waste your brain on acting? And I didn't care that people were laughing. I just knew it was something I loved to do. I was a part of church plays, and on the stage I felt alive. I just wanted to continue portraying different characters, experiencing different emotions, and inspiring people. And so that was part of the reason why I took a gap year after sixth form, because I thought I had to choose between my two passions, acting and doing neurosurgery. But then after the gap year, I decided, no, I can do both. I feel like my life would be empty if I had to give up either of the two. And so that is why I'm studying both at university currently. And no regrets.
Right, Mr. Wickham, and I am glad that you mentioned something very important when it comes on to acting. On a personal note, I had done theatre arts in the at the CSET level, but there were persons, who questioned its importance and relevance in society. What would you say to students who have a love and passion for theatre, but have been dissuaded to pursue this field any further?
Don't listen to the naysayers, because the same people's telling you that that's a useless career. Look at them. They are always glued to the television. They are watching entertainment, and they don't recognize just how powerful entertainment and the media has an influence on society. Like it's so powerful that they don't even notice it. Everyone in this day and age, in this technological age, is influenced by what they see on television and by what they read in books. And so your creativity, don't let no one damper it. Like this is your outlet to create what you want to see in the world. Because that's what I see theater as, especially. On the stage, you can create a world that is your own, and that can influence how you become and grow as a person to have an impact on the wider society.
Well said, but let us shift back to neuroscience. Neuroscience is a very interesting field. So after medical school, what are some plans that you may have next regarding your career?
So after medical school, I hope to do surgery, of course. I also hope to do research. I got interested in research after coming to Wesleyan and joining a mouse lab where we study epilepsy. And so knowing that I have the potential to actually enter a building, do experiments, and find a cure for something, maybe, or maybe play a small part in someone finding a cure for something, that just excites me. That's again creativity, but this time in science. And so I want to continue that later down the line. And far down the line, I want to return to Jamaica, establish my own practice and my research lab to get more people, more students involved in the field, especially as it regards research, because I feel like a lot of those who are sciencey, they think that they must become a doctor. But there are other options within the sciences, and I want to bridge the gap that I see in Jamaica and the Caribbean.
Thank you, Mr. Wickham. We'll take our final break here on the B broadcast. We'll be right back as we continue to speak with our 2021 Rhodes Scholar, Mr. Fitzroy Wickham. Welcome back to the B broadcast, brought to you by the B Broadcasting Commission, sponsored by the Yorkastle High School's Students' Council. We're speaking with the Yorkist and 2021 Rhodes Scholar, Mr. Fitzroy Wickham. Now, Mr. Wickham, sometimes students living in rural Jamaica lack certain resources and experiences when it comes down to education in Jamaica. Are you concerned that this will hinder students from pursuing higher studies?
Absolutely, yes. And I say that emphatically because that was me. I had certain dreams, and I thought that because I was a country boy, come from Bronson, Jamaica, where nobody know about more amount to know, you know. But again, I have to say thanks to my mother for exposing me to what existed outside of Brownstown. And when I saw the many opportunities out there, that's when my eyes were open and I said, I want more. And you don't have to necessarily leave physically to know what's out there. We have internet at our fingertips. Mark here the internet slow and we decided on floor if we fix that. But instead of going on YouTube and wasting time, look into some of the opportunities that are out there in your field of passion. And you will this hopefully a desire will begin within you to want to go and achieve them. And so for me, I lived in the US when I was younger, 9, 10 years old. And when I came back to Jamaica, I was like, I want to study abroad because I know that the universities are well funded, and I can do so much more than I think I could have done in Jamaica. And I shared my passion, and that's one thing you must do. Don't be afraid to say what you really want out loud. People will laugh at you. They laughed at me. People laughed at me when I said I want to become a theater major. So be it. Who's laughing now? Share your dreams. People will tell you no, but there might be one person who says yes. And I remember telling Mr. Treasure, and he said, okay. He gave me Dr. Man's number. And Dr. Man is a counselor that helps students from Jamaica study overseas. And when he gave me that contact, I called him myself because my mother she was moving too slow for my good. And so I called him myself and he said, I need to speak to your mother. And that's how I got into the AQUES program that led to me getting a scholarship to come to Western University to study. And I do believe that in this point in time, the resources in the rural areas are so limited that you have to leave in order to accomplish some of your dreams, most of your dreams. But I will say this, when you do accomplish them, return. Return so that you can pour into these places that are often neglected because you and me, we know what it's like. Pour into these areas so that youngsters, those who are younger than you, don't have to struggle as much to achieve their dreams and their goals. And so I would say, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. If you have to leave Brownstone, if you have to leave St. Anne, if you have to leave Jamaica to achieve your fullest potential, don't be afraid. But when you do, return that there's a little child who is in the position that you are currently in, and they would love for someone to give them a helping hand. And that's part of the reason that I want to come out to Jamaica to make sure that the rural areas have access to a lot of these opportunities.
Wow, Mr. Wickham. And I do know that you will return for real and, set up areas where our young people will be more involved. Um, Especially now in this pandemic, students globally are feeling depressed and, anxious when it comes down to their future studies.
Mhm.
What advice do you have for young people who are nervous to continue their school experience?
For me, this is probably the hardest question because I'm not in your shoes, so I can't speak to your struggles. But I can empathize. And I will say that it won't last forever. It feels like it's never ending, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. And we are seeing different vaccines that are coming out right now. I can think of three right now by Pfizer, Moderna, and even Oxford University. And they're showing great promise in the efficacy. And so hopefully when this vaccine is introduced to the wider public and this pandemic is behind us, you have to ask yourself, what now? And so you're not just studying, you're not doing this bookwork for the present, you're doing it for the future when this light is upon us, when after the pandemic is over. And so if you waste the time now, if you stay in this despondent stage, then what will you do when the world returns to some form of normalcy? Like you need to get back, you need to keep that hope in mind. And if you lose hope, then you lose purpose. And so don't lose that hope. We must be hopeful that there will come a day when we will say, remember COVID? Remember COVID-19? Because by then it will be gone, it will be eradicated. And we as humans, as a species, we have overcome so much. And there's nothing that stops me from believing that we will beat this pandemic. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Just make sure that you're using the time now to prepare for what you're going to do once we're out of this pandemic.
Right, and these are sound words, Mr. Wickham. No, I understand that you are passionate about helping our young people become striving citizens of our country and even our society at large. Right now, you are seen as a beacon of light in the lives of many young people across the island. What is that advice that you would like to share with our youth, encouraging them to push towards their goals?
I always say it, and it is to believe in yourself. Because if you believe in yourself, you are guaranteed that at least one person on earth believes in you. That's you. And once you believe in yourself and you know yourself, then other people will come around to seeing the potential that is inside of you. And I said know yourself, but a lot of people don't know who they are. And they don't know who they are because they spend so much time trying to get to know other people. The times that you have alone, and this pandemic with social distancing is probably the perfect time to do that introspection, to think about who am I, why am I on earth, what are my talents, what do I care about. Know yourself. Don't try to be like anybody else because you are unique. There is only one person like you, and you were given your person because you are the best person in charge of what you will become. So if you know yourself, you believe in yourself, and you work hard and apply yourself, that perseverance will guarantee you success. If you're poor, listen, I'm poor. Or I was poor. Let me not claim it. I was poor. I don't come from any rich background. But I built, so I remember someone saying that if you're worried about money, that's the least of your problem. Money is out there. There are people who are watching you don't even know. Once they see someone who is holding up their head, they will invest in you. And that's what happened with me. And it's not money all the times. Sometimes an opportunity. Sometimes it's some recognition that somebody look at me and say, we're winning all these awards for. But I took it in stride. Be patient. If anything will come too quick or come easy, won't last. Be patient because nothing happens before its time. God will see you through. And so that's my advice to people, to young people. Believe in yourself, know yourself, work hard, and trust me, people will come around to recognizing that you are someone to contend with. So don't give up.
Inspiring words right there, Mr. Wickham. But lastly, what are you looking forward to the most at Oxford University?
The thing I'm looking forward to the most is meeting the people, the fellow Rhodes scholars from all around the world. I had a similar experience when I went to Barbados a couple of years back, and I met several students from different Caribbean countries. And let me tell you, there was some rich discussions that happened, and I learned so much. Because I've done Caribbean studies in school. I've done religious education in school, but meeting people who had had personal experience with these things I had only seen in textbooks or been told by a teacher was so enlightening. Like so much ignorance. I shed so much ignorance from having discussions with these people. Because let me tell you something. As I said, learning doesn't only happen in the classroom. And so I want to meet these people who are like-minded. They want to change the world. They have like such large dreams and huge visions for human society that I think it's going to be invaluable. Of course, I will learn a lot inside the classroom, but I'm looking forward to get to meet other young people who have a passion for changing the world like I do.
All right. And there you have it, viewers, Mr. Fitzroy Wickham, Jamaica's 2021 Rhodes Scholar. Thank you so much for joining us today on the B broadcast. And I wish you all the very best in your future endeavors and studies. And we look forward to hearing from you again. Nil sine magno labore. Thank you. Now, this was the B broadcast brought to you by the B Broadcasting Commission. I am Breannah Edwards on behalf of the B Broadcasting Commission. Have a good afternoon.